Well, first, I guess I'll go ahead and show you guys the box, but yeah, so as you can see here, I went ahead and ordered my first official emulation device. I don't think I've ever ordered one of these before. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had one of these. Actually, no, that is a lie. I had one back in the day. It was by AT Games, and it was like, it was technically an emulation device, not on the level of this though. This right here is the RG35XX Plus. Got it on sale for about 45-50 bucks, something like that, so pretty good price. But yeah, the one I had back in the day, it was mainly just for like Sega Genesis stuff. It was by AT Games. There was an SD card, so I'm pretty sure you could add your own ROMs to it, but again, it was like sort of an emulation device, but not on the level of this where, you know, it has two separate SD cards, which I did, you know, I pimped this thing out, all right? I have a 64 SD card in there for like the OS and all that, and then I have a 256 gigabyte SD card for all of my ROMs, and I'm not gonna lie, 256 was just barely and not really even enough for all the ROMs that I added to this thing, but I made it work, and I'm kind of doing this thing right now where it's like, hey, if I want more space in the future, I can always replace it for like a 512, but for now, between the 256 in there, and then if I optimize it, I could add more ROMs to the 64, so I can make that work for now. But basically, why this device is so awesome is because there's the RG35XX, which is a great system. It can run, you know, like GBA games, and it can play basically anything up to PS1, no problem, but even then, there's going to be some PS1 games that might slightly struggle here and there, whereas the RG35XX Plus, you're spending like an extra maybe like 10-15 bucks, and you're guaranteed every single PS1 game to run, on top of getting access to Dreamcast, N64, and PlayStation portable games. Yes, PSP. And then there's also obviously like Sega Saturn and stuff. But yeah, this handheld is awesome. And the one of the main reasons that I got this handheld, because at first I wasn't exactly sold on it. I was like, all right, but I have other ways to play these games. If I want to emulate these games in a handheld form factor, I already have one of those controllers for my phone that, like, you know, you like put it on the sides and it's like, you know, it's whatever. You can just download the emulators on your phone and you have that experience right there. Like, I was like, why do I necessarily, like, I wanted this handheld, don't get me wrong, I really wanted this handheld just for the handheld form factor, on top of it looking like a Game Boy, because I had a Game Boy back in the day, so, you know, it's really nostalgic and all that, with a gray, and then it has the same color buttons and all that, but, you know, I was like, alright, do I really need this right now, though? And that's when I realized that it has, yes, an HDMI port at the top, and not just that, it has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities, with the Wi-Fi that allows you to unlock retro achievements and RetroArch if you care about that stuff. Me personally, I don't care about achievements, I don't care about trophies. I respect the people that hunt that stuff, you know, that go for the platinum trophies on Xbox and PlayStation. I don't know, for me it's really a waste of time, but at the same time, it is cool just seeing the trophies pop and at least unlocking them, so then you have a snapshot in time and you go through your trophies like, oh, on this date I was playing this game and I beat this game and I did this in this game, you know, I think that's cool. Just, you know, platinum trophies though, like going to that extent, unlocking trophies in itself though, just have that snapshot in time, I think that's cool. So having Wi-Fi capabilities is really cool, but as I mentioned before, yeah, there's an HDMI slot on the top, which means you can consoleize this thing, and I did. I hooked up my DualShock 4 to this just to make sure it would work, and yeah, not only is this a handheld, which, you know, has all the things you would, there's other models of this handheld, okay? There's one called the RG35XX, which comes with the exact same specs as this one. It'll run the exact same games, but it has analog sticks. Again, I wanted this one specifically just because it's more of that Game Boy form factor, and even though it doesn't have an analog stick, it isn't exactly necessary. In fact, when I play PlayStation 1 games, I use the D-pad for most of them, just because while the DualShocks, you know, like the analog sticks do work, I find for that most games, unless it was designed with those in mind, like Ape Escape, for example, they just tend to work a bit better with a D-pad. Like when I was playing Spyro 1 just a bit ago, you know, it was one of those things where I was like, you know, back in the day, I used to use the thumbstick for this one, but nowadays, revisiting it, I don't know why, it feels more natural using the D-pad in a lot of instances in that game. And then like games like Resident Evil, obviously tank control games, you always want to use the D-pad. Never use an analog stick for tank control games. That is a terrible idea. So yeah, you know, that's like the main reason that I got this thing, just because it's sort of like a handheld, you know, like PS1 in a way. And again, there is ways for me to do that with my Android phone because I have that controller, but I wanted a dedicated device. When it comes to the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance compatibility and all the other retro devices, that was more or less just an added bonus, just because I already have a modded, you know, DS and DSi and 3DS to where I can already emulate those games on a handheld Nintendo device if I really wanted to. But now that I have all those games on here readily available, and it's already in that form factor, yeah, I've been playing a ton of Game Boy Advance, and PS1, and all the other things that I had mentioned before, as well as consoleizing it, you know, hooking the DualShock 4 out to it, and this device has just been absolutely amazing. Again, I got it for like 45-50 bucks because it was on sale. I had the 64GB SD in there mainly for the OS, but I might optimize that in a way to be able to squeeze some more ROMs on there since that is so much storage. And then the 256GB that is mainly holding all my ROMs right now. And yeah, I'm super happy with this device. It is freaking awesome. If you're curious as to like the I/O with the device or what else is on it, again, it's not a standard HDMI on the top, by the way. It's a mini HDMI. So if you ordered one of these or if you're interested in it, make sure to get a mini HDMI to HDMI cord or adapter. Also, there is multiple devices in this price range that have the exact same specs. So they have the RG35XX Plus, make sure it's the Plus, the RG35XXH, which is the horizontal one with the analog sticks, as well as the RG35XX SP, which, you guessed it, yeah, it's trying to model after the Game Boy Advance SP, you know, the whole like clamshell design and everything, which that one's really slick. But again, I just wanted that original Game Boy form factor, and it's a really comfortable device. Anyway, as I was saying before though, yeah, you know, you got the charger and the headphone slots on the jack, you got two SD card things on the side, the power button there, you got the volume on the sides, you got the R1, R2, L1, R2 on the back, and if you ever need to access the battery, you just use like a Phillips head screwdriver right there. And otherwise, yeah, it's a really nice device. I'm absolutely loving it. Even just this morning before recording this, I played a couple of games. I ended up beating Sesame Street, Elmo's Adventures, and Grouchland, I think it was called. It wasn't a long game. It was literally like 10-15 minutes long. I literally beat it before. Like, I turned it on and I was like, you know what? I'm feeling nostalgic for Sesame Street. So I turned the game on and immediately as soon as I saw Elmo, I was like, man, I feel like a 3-year-old kid sitting in front of the CRT on Saturday morning again. And I started playing through the game and yeah, I beat it in 15 minutes. You know, it said the end and the credits started rolling. I was like, wow. That was short, but it was fun. So, you know, that was fun. And then I started replaying Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan, which is an absolutely classic Game Boy Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. It is such an amazing beat up. It is a bit more simplified compared to something like, say, Turtles in Time on the SNES or in the arcades, for example, but man, it is still just an all-time classic TMNT beat-em-up game. It is so good. In fact, I believe that game was even included in the recently released Cowabunga collection. They had a ton of games in there, including some of the Game Boy ones. So that's another way to play the game if you don't necessarily have a means to emulate the game if you want to check it out. There was also 2 other sequels released on the Game Boy, TMNT 2 and 3, respectively. But yeah, so far, I've gotten a ton of use out of this device, and I already know I'm going to continue to get a ton of use out of this device, and yeah, man, this is like my new baby right now. I gotta order a case of some kind for it, because right now, like, when I've been done using it, I've just been putting it back into the box, and just to, like, protect the screen. Not only, it also comes with a glass screen protector, which is awesome, love that. But, they gave you, like, this foam thing, so I've just been putting that over it just to, like, keep it safe, make sure it doesn't get all dinged up or whatever. But, yeah, I definitely gotta get, like, a real case for this thing at some point, because this isn't exactly, like, the most ideal setup in the world, but, you know, we'll get there when we get there.